and welcome to another episode of Behind the Bar. I'm your host, Temitayo, and thankfully, the international break is finally over. I don't know about you, but the international break is not the best of times when club football is away and we get to watch some of these redundant games like the Nations League, which really count for nothing. Some of the World Cup qualifiers, those relevant games that actually mean something, are great to see. Of course, my homeland, Nigeria, got decent result against Rwanda 2-0 with Victor Osimhen scoring both goals, and then dropped 2 points in the last minute there against Zimbabwe with a goal right at stoppage time in a game that they dominated, which puts their qualifications hanging in the balance. Certainly hoping that as the World Cup comes to the United States, where I reside now and is my home, that I can get to see my native land, Nigeria, get to play in the most prestigious cup competition in football. And so certainly rooting for them to be able to qualify for the World Cup. Of course, on the club front, Manchester United, my team, a great break. We talked about on the last episode how the international break came at really a perfect time, not from a form perspective because the team was on a good run of form. We talked about those results, those performances in the Europa League and the Premier League. But from a fitness and availability standpoint, much needed rest for some players and a chance for injured players to come back, like we mentioned. And of course, today, Man United released their training footage, and we saw several players come back. To my delight, the likes of Luke Shaw in training, Lenny Euro back in training, Harry Maguire spotted at training, Altay Bayandere back in training, of course Mason Mount, we know he was back before the international break. And so lots of positives going into the final stretch of this campaign. In terms of Man United players during the international break, I think Denmark was probably the one international team that had the most United represented players in Rasmus Højlund, Eriksen, and our new recruit Patrick Dorgu, who also is, his parents are originally from Nigeria. But all three players had goal contributions. Of course, Rasmus Højlund scoring against Portugal, hitting the Sioux against Ronaldo in Portugal. I think that's a sign of his confidence coming back. And then Eriksen scoring off of a Dorgu assist. And so I think when you put all these things together with the players having decent performances and players coming back, I think it's certainly, the squad looks a lot stronger, right? In terms of the options, the availability, like I said, and dare I say, some positivity and some optimism going into this crucial month of April. What is it? I think it's 7 games or so in April. Of course, we have Nottingham Forest, which we're going to preview here in a second, and then followed by huge Manchester Derby next weekend. And then, of course, we go right into the quarterfinals against Olympique Lyonnais, sandwiched between a game against Newcastle, and then we end it with 2 games with Wolves and Bournemouth. And so really congested fixture list in the month of April, and a huge opportunity to not only finish the season on a high, but of course we know that it's all about the Europa League, right? So those games against Lyon is really what every United fan is looking forward to. Yes, we want to continue to build momentum in the Premier League with the decent results that we had prior to the international break. But make no mistake about it, I could care less about the Premier League over this last 7-8 weeks or so of the season. It's all about the Europa League. And with all that said, next up is the Premier League game against Nottingham Forest. So we're going away to Nottingham on Tuesday, I believe it is. I believe the FA Cup is this weekend, and then the Premier League games will start next week, and we go to Nottingham Forest on Tuesday. And they owned us at Old Trafford in the reverse fixture. I think this is a chance, I wouldn't call it a revenge game, but I think this is a litmus test, right? To see how far the team has progressed under Amorim, and if those results that we saw in those performances against Sociedad, against Arsenal, against Leicester, if we're going to see a continuation of the progression that we've seen from the team. And this is going to be a real test. Nottingham Forest, of course, are third in the league. Probably the surprise team of the season. I think, of course, Liverpool and Slot is probably going to be the manager of the year, winning the Premier League in his first season. But outside of him, I think Nuno Espirito Santos is certainly a candidate for manager of the season. What he's done with this team is nothing short of incredible. Remarkable feat that they've been able to accomplish, going from near relegation last season to a Champions League team this season. Of course, that's what they're shooting for, and all things point to them finishing in the top four and securing that Champions League position. I think fifth position is probably going to get a Champions League place based on what we've seen from UEFA for this season. I think it's safe to say that Nottingham Forest are going to be in the Champions League next season. And I mean, just an incredible job by Nuno. And so I'm really looking forward to this game. Like I said, I want to see if this team has flattered to deceive, or if what we've seen over the last 6 to 8 weeks is a true sign of the progression that we suspect. With that being said, let's dive into our predicted lineup and, of course, the result. In the back, I mentioned that Bayindir is back from injury, which is great news. I think we'll certainly see him before the end of the season. But without a doubt, Onana is going to be between the sticks for this. The back three, we mentioned the return of Maguire and Euro. I don't expect to see them start this game. Probably will make the bench, which is great news. But I expect Mazraoui to start at the right center back. I think we'll see Matthias de Ligt at center back. And on the left, so there's no Euro, there's no Aiden Heaven, there's no Licha Martinez, of course. I think we might see Lindelof. Not sure if he got any minutes for Sweden during the break, but just for lack of options, I think we might see Lindelof either play on the right and Mazraoui switches to left center back, or he'll play left center back and keep Mazraoui on the right. It'll be great to see Shaw and Maguire on the bench, and I'm sure they'll get some minutes. But yeah, I think Mazraoui, de Ligt, and Lindelof are probably going to start in the back three. The wing backs really pick themselves. Right now, of course, Diogo Dalot will play as the right wing back, and on the other flank, we'll see Patrick Dorgu come back into the Premier League squad, having served his three-game suspension following the red card against Ipswich. In the pivot, the two pivots, we know that Manuel Ugarte will certainly take his place in one of those roles. And I think it's safe to say that Bruno Fernandes will occupy that second midfield role. I think he's sort of been transformed into that deeper lying, playmaking midfielder. We've seen that consistently over the last few weeks, and it looks like Amorim has sort of settled with him in that position, which generally I like. I think he's able to dictate play. He's able to get the ball from the center backs and progress forward and break the lines and start attacks, and then arrive late in the box to get goals and assists. So I think Bruno and Ugarte will fill in those two pivots. In the number 10s, I think for sure Joshua Zirkzee, who got a much-needed rest. Saw some pictures online of him on vacation during the international break. Well-earned and well-deserved, and he'll come back fit, fresh, ready to go, and he'll take up one of those 10s. And then the other 10, I think Garnacho is the other player. He wasn't called up by Argentina, so he'll also be fresh, firing, and ready to go. And then, of course, up top, Rasmus Højlund, who finally broke his barren spell against Leicester in the Premier League. I mentioned at the outset his goal against Portugal, and he's going to be looking to keep that goal-scoring form in this game against Nottingham Forest. It's going to be a tight game. Nottingham Forest are very good defensively. They have a strong back line, good midfield, and the way that they are able to counterattack. I mean, we saw that at Old Trafford, right? And how they beat us with our former United player, Elanga, and Callum Odoi, and then, of course, Chris Wood up top, and Morgan Gibbs-White right behind them, have been a deadly attack this season on the counter, and I think it's going to be a tough game. My prediction, I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw. I think defensively we've improved, but I think Nottingham Forest are third for a reason. I mean, at this stage of the season, the table doesn't lie, right? But I think if what we've seen over the last few weeks are to be believed, then this should be a much tougher game for Nottingham Forest than what they faced at Old Trafford. And so I think a 1-1 score draw is what we can expect from this game, which will only further solidify what Amorim has been doing and what we've seen from this team. I think a draw would be a good result. So that's what I'm expecting, and that's what we'd be looking for. So that's it for me. Thank you guys for tuning in. Certainly, like I said, glad that the international break is over and club football returns. Please subscribe. Can't say that enough. It will mean so much to the channel here. Appreciate your time. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.